They say that time is money, but if you are not flexible enough with yourself and with others, if you don't manage time properly, it may cost you. So what do I mean by all of that? Imagine you have a very important meeting with someone who can help you save tens of thousands, millions of dollars for your business, but you are really crunched for time. You don't have time to meet with someone if they show up 10 minutes late because you have back-to-back meetings, you don't have a buffer between meetings, you don't have any slots in your schedule, you are operating at a very high level of stress and chaos, or you are just always trying to maximize each moment and never giving your brain time to breathe. That may sound like an extreme example, but a lot of people love to be busy all the time and cramp up their schedules for different reasons because maybe they really have a lot to do, they're overstretched, or they are addicted to work and they need to feel busy, or they just feel that they need to work really hard and they don't always make time to work smarter, or they are very smart and they just want to just do it all, whatever the case may be. But how does how we manage time for ourselves affect others and the organizations that we work with and the teams that we work with? It really does affect a lot, and oftentimes people are not going to let you know how the way you operate affects them personally. They're just going to walk away from the situation, or they're going to really dread dealing with it. So for example, if you know someone is a stickler for time and they're not flexible at all, you're going to have to take deep breaths before you speak to them. When you have to let them know that something is delayed, or if someone is always making a fuss about you being 5 minutes late, even though you work 3 hours late, then you're going to be feeling like they're very ungrateful and they don't take into account all that you do when you go the extra mile, and this causes resentment. And you may start to feel as though you either are going to set more boundaries with them or you're going to just find other places where they appreciate it. But beyond that, it's also that as leaders, as managers of people and of projects, we need to make sure that we're not just talking all this diversity, inclusion, equity business, belonging business. We're actually allowing for people to not feel like they're going to have a nervous breakdown because of a minute or two, or having to be sick and taking time to rest, or having to just have a human moment. Like imagine if you have an important meeting and your hands grip because you have to do stuff at home. Like you may be picking up a package or dealing with a child and your pants is ripped and you have to iron another pair of pants, whatever the case may be. Right? You shouldn't have to have a nervous breakdown because of something like that. And I'm exaggerating when it's a nervous breakdown, but it is very stressful for people to feel as though 5-10 minutes late or an unplanned issue is going to cost them their job or a relationship with someone. I've seen it where people are very upset about the comments that other people make and the expectations that they have. I remember when I was at a very toxic job, one of the worst jobs I've ever had that I don't even list anywhere. I was gaslighted by someone in management. They put a meeting on my calendar according to them, and they didn't even, they asked me where I was. I was like, I was in bed at that time. I was sleeping. I try to have a healthy lifestyle. And they never scheduled a meeting, but they had this unreasonable expectation that as a professional, you should be able to just change your schedule at a drop of a hat for things that are non-emergencies that are caused by their mismanagement of projects, their mismanagement of time. And this person used to schedule everything back to back, and I even take bathroom breaks. And that is not healthy. You can't be dehydrated all day because you want to work yourself to death. And you're not even making any progress. And all you're doing is complaining and becoming more bitter in your role. So that didn't work out, but I noticed that it was a routine for this person, a pattern, where they just woke up and said, let's just go and do whatever. So one time they asked me if I could come into a meeting like at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I will, if you're going to pay me for the cab to come in early because I'm not going to be taking the train at that time. Due to my safety, I'm not doing it. They laughed at me. They called me ridiculous. They said that I'm a native New Yorker, I should be used to it. And I said, I don't get on the train before the sun is set. Like, why would I do that? If I know which route I was going to take at that time. It was nothing. There was no reason to be walking in the street at that time. And they told me that they leave their house at a certain time and they have no problem. Well, the neighborhood that they lived in, it's much different than the neighborhood I was living in. So her neighborhood was much safer, and it was a weird situation. It was a weird discussion. I know that a lot of people don't take these things into account and they don't really care. They say just show up. But this is not the way to manage people. You're managing human beings and you should care about their well-being. A lot of managers and leaders do not take time to show the same grace to their employees as they do to their clients. We can talk about that later. But in terms of time, what can you do to be better at managing time with people? Understand cultural differences of time. For example, I have a Caribbean background. Sometimes it's a joke about Caribbean time. In personal settings, when it comes to leisure, the time can be very loose. You can't show up to a party at the time they told you that it's going to start. So, unless you want to set it up, but not to stereotype or generalize. In my culture, I'll say, when you're supposed to do something that's for leisure, you shouldn't be putting all this pressure on people and being a stickler for time. So when things are not so important, when they're more casual, you're supposed to have more flexibility. Also, when you're supposed to be more successful and you're supposed to be taking care of certain things and building relationships, people are not trying to make you feel overwhelmed. They're trying to make you feel welcome. They're trying to get to know you. They're trying to take the time to sit with you and get to know what is important to you. And it doesn't really work like that in corporate America all the time, right? People just want to get to the point. Just get to the point. Just get to whatever you want to ask for. Just talk to them like you're pitching for a deal. And that's not how my culture works. Like, that's actually considered rude. I told a former colleague that in Spanish, it takes 15 minutes to say hi because you have to ask people how they're doing. You may have to ask them how their family is. You don't have to do this, but this is expected. Otherwise, you seem like a weird person, like you don't have any manners, like you don't care about the person. I've worked with people in different backgrounds, and for some people, like they've never seen me as a person. I'm not talking about the racism and sexism. I'm talking about they don't care about the people that are in front of them. They want results. They want their bonus. They just are not interested in. It's not even about small talk. It's about even interacting with people. So if you really want to be a leader and a manager that is a person who makes people feel like they belong, who's giving people time to be able to be themselves and to grow as people, you're gonna have to sit down and do some work and expand your horizon. When I work with academic colleagues, they really take the time to figure out like how things intersect and how people's experiences make them show up in spaces. So in work, you have to figure out how culture shows up, like how you have to take cultural norms or people's unique cultural experiences. Like for example, first generation Americans, and you take that into account. Like they didn't have the same experience you had in the summer because their parents didn't have a trust fund or a country club membership or a vacation home here. They may have had it back home, but it wasn't the same experience. Or someone who's neurodivergent, or you take into account that this person is excellent at this skill, that they hyper-focus on something because of their condition, but they are overstimulated with certain things. Like you're not trained to do that. But you have to be aware when people tell you that they have certain things. Like, for example, I dealt with someone who had PTSD, and I asked them for some tips on how to, manage working with students with that, right? Because students have traumas that they have that they have to deal with. Like, for example, I had a student who was a vet who was having some issues that I had to speak to them about so that I could figure out, what resources they needed and what they could do to improve their performance in the class and finish the class or to retake the class. And being able to have that conversation with someone is important. Asking people what works for them. Obviously, you have to be mindful of conversations you have with people, and you have to work with HR, with accommodations, things of that nature. But you have to be able to understand, like, if you want people to feel like they belong, to be able to succeed, you have to take these things into account. Then we have like ableism, things like that some people don't take into account. You can get sued for not making accommodations for people. And I've worked with people who believe you should work yourself to death if needed, that you should not take any time off, that you should work through pain, you should work through things. That is not acceptable to me. Because no work is worth your health. And some things, everyone is going to be recovering differently and dealing with pain differently. People have different pain thresholds. You have certain women who have very bad cramps, so have certain reproductive health issues that make them very sick during certain times of their cycle. You have certain people who suffer from depression, and when they have their episodes that they need to do certain things for themselves to just be able to manage their daily activities. You have people who have invisible disabilities where they're falling apart at certain times, but they need to be able to have third places to go to. So taking work off their plate without asking them is not going to work. And you have just individual things, like, you have a new parent, or you have somebody who's newly married, you have somebody who lost a parent, or someone who's going to school. You have to make sure that you are being flexible with them so that they feel as though they can count on you to let them succeed in their own terms. In terms of time management itself, so it's, I talked about giving people flexibility and understanding what causes people to have issues with time, but you as an individual have to manage your time. And there are so many ways you can do that, by time blocking, by setting themes to your day, by managing your energy, because sometimes people don't have the self-awareness to realize that the problem they're having with managing time is that they're not managing their energy. If you know that you are more hyper-focused to sit down and write or read something during the afternoon, that's when you should schedule to do those things, right? If you also are having issues managing time, if you're having issues managing priorities, and feeling, I was talking to someone the other day who said everything is urgent. And no, to me that's unacceptable. Everything cannot be urgent. You have to get out of the business of putting out fires. You have to set up structure so that you can have flexibility to deal with exceptions and to things that come up. You cannot treat everything as urgent. Everything cannot be done right now. A lot of times managers and leaders have issues because they interrupt their staff all of the time for everything that just comes up, for fires that to be put out. And that's unacceptable, because then nothing gets done. People need actual time to get the work done. Everything cannot be done outside of normal work hours. That's how people get burnt out. So what do you do? What tools can you use, right, to help you to better manage everything you have to do on your plate? Well, if you're working with other people, you need to use some type of workflow tools. They don't have to be complex. They don't have to be these very expensive applications. You do need to use something. You can't just call out tasks for people to do and expect them to write it down like they're a waiter taking an order. And function like that. When you're dealing with complex situations and you're dealing with business, everything has to be captured somewhere. Otherwise, things just fall apart and fall through the cracks. You have to make sure you have whatever they need to have automated. Things cannot be sitting in folders and binders. And things cannot just be all over the place. Like, automate whatever you can so that if someone wins a lottery or someone moves on, you have everything captured. Outsourcing also helps. Sometimes the reason why you're not doing well in an area and you're wasting a lot of time is because you have no business working in that area. So the one thing that happens is that, for example, in accounting, a lot of people, like I asked a medical professional why he was using QuickBooks. What business does he have using QuickBooks on his own when he should be growing his practice? And I asked him how much money he could make, what other services he can offer if he got out of the business of trying to keep his books and records and got back in his business. So he didn't give himself enough time to work on his business because he was working in his business, doing things he had no business doing. And the person could afford to outsource things, he just didn't want to spend the money. A lot of this time thing goes back to money. Having the time freedom and financial freedom, those things are tied in. A lot of people are scared of having free time because they feel like they're going to go crazy if they have too much free time. They don't know what they're going to do with themselves if they have too much time. And that's a disservice to yourself. You have to sit down and sit back and ask yourself, what would you do if you freed up half of your time? One exercise that was very painful for me was when I was asked to read the 4-hour work week. Imagine as a recovering workaholic to be asked to read that book. I was very upset because I felt that, what would I do? Would I lose my mind? I remember when I was much younger, someone said, oh, that if they married me, they wanted me not to work so hard, that just invest in real estate and just go travel. I said, but I won't go crazy. I would have nothing to do. I was joking. I regret now not thinking differently because I could just be sitting in Italy somewhere, eating gelato and writing a book. But you have to do something. You don't want to be idle, but you also don't want to be just being busy for the sake of being busy. You have to understand what you're doing with each moment of your time, each second of your time, but you also have to understand that there's more to time than just working. You have to make sure that you're enjoying life and you're being present. And if you are a person that a 10-minute delay is going to give you a nervous breakdown, you really need to sit with yourself and ask yourself what it is that you're doing with your life that is so important to you, that you have to that you can have flexibility. And if you're a person who's always late, you have to sit back and say, what is making you late? What is it that, are you overstretching yourself? If you're a person who's tired of being micromanaged by others and feeling as though every moment of your life is controlled by someone else because you don't have full autonomy, you have to ask yourself if you are creating this limiting mindset or if you are not setting boundaries for yourself and others. And if you're a person who has mastered managing your time and managing relationships and really sitting there and understanding other people and making them feel like they belong and being stern with people but being flexible, then you're winning. I remember years ago I was supposed to meet with someone to just introduce ourselves and see how we could collaborate, and the person didn't reschedule on me 3 times. And I can't play sports, but I do believe in 3 strikes and you're out, and I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to follow up with this person. And I'll tell you, to this day, I regret it because I could have been in a long-term partnership with this person if I didn't take it personal that they were so busy they couldn't follow up. Because guess what? The person, they could have used help from someone like me to help them to free up their time. And fumble the bag, and I wasn't that busy, to be honest, and it wasn't that serious. So the next time that someone is delayed in meeting with you, and it's not the end of the world, like it's not like there's going to be a surgery that you have a team there that can pay tens of thousands of dollars. If you have a colleague who's working with you and they work really late and hard and they're always extending themselves and being very proactive about things, take a moment and just breathe and just ask yourself, is this going to matter in 5 years that this person was 10 minutes late, or this person is such a strong contributor to this team? And then ask them if there's anything you can do to help them to work better. Because a lot of times people get so upset about someone disrespecting their time, they forget to ask the person, like, do you need me to help you with something? Be observant of other people, invest in other people, take interest in what they're working on. Like, if someone tells you that they can't meet with you because they have to meet with so-and-so to work on this project, ask what the project is. Be curious. What if it's something that you could help them with? What if it's an introduction there? You're missing out on life by being bad with time. And yeah, that's all I have to say today. But I hope that in you setting up your structure to live and your rules and rituals, you don't forget to make time for what really matters, and you don't forget that it's not the time, you have to make sure, you have to make the time count, and you have to make sure that you're not just going off a checklist in life and you're forgetting that you're dealing with human beings who have other things going on. And it's whenever you can, buy your time back, because it's very hard to work with other people who don't respect your time, or to spend every moment of your life just having to wait until other people let you free to use the scrap of time that they've left you to live your life. You should be living your life every moment, not when you're free or when you're tired.